I first took Frank's class, a one-on-one class, like 3 years ago, and that's when I first started making pizzas in my uni, like in the backyard. And I made one pizza, and I was like, I don't know how any pizzeria does it.
New Haven style pizza. Come and take a seat. A beats, it's time to eat.
Charred, New Haven Pizza Show, episode 37. Frank, after doing this show for a year and a half, we finally made it to Worcester Street. It's Kevin Begley.
I am not worthy. We are not worthy.
Frank Zabsky. We are at Frank Pepe Pizzeria, and I'm with Kevin and Chris. And I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. I'm going to let you say your title. Go ahead.
Kevin Gagliard, Vice President of Operations for the Frank Pepe family.
Yep, and I'm Chris Dioria. I'm the Director of Quality Assurance for Frank Pepe's.
Well, thank you so much for having us here. First of all, let's set anyone not watching on YouTube, if you're just listening, let's set the scene where we are. So we're in the spot, correct?
The original building, 1925.
Unbelievable.
This is where Frank started with his wife. Yes, amazing place to be.
And I can feel a little bit of the heat, and the smells when you walk into the
spot.
spot.
Is amazing.
It's unbelievable. And you said 1925, 100 years. Congratulations on 100 years this year. Big celebration all year, right?
Yes, all year we're giving back to our employees and our guests and just having a good time that we made it to 100 years.
It's amazing. There's so many stories. You can almost feel it. You know, everyone you talk to in Connecticut, but just being in this location. Frank, I know you have a huge history with this area.
So I want to ask you a quick question to both you guys. What do you think it takes to last 100 years?
You have to take care of your people, and the family has a long legacy going back to Frank Pepe himself. The people are the ones that make the pizza. You take care of them, and your life will be successful.
Excellent.
Frank says it a lot doing the show. You know, we talk about there's not a lot of brand new pizza places that open up. You don't see like a brand new pizza place that often. And Frank says because the pizza speaks for itself, and there's history behind it, and it's tough to open up a pizza place, but for 100 years, it's an incredible run.
We've been very fortunate, but we're only as good as our last pizza.
Right.
And speaking of that,
did you bring a prop or something?
we got to hold up. We got to stick up to that. All right? Pizza dough recipe. If you don't give it to us, you get squirted in the gun.
Guess we're getting wet.
Where did that even come from? Did you Well,
We're going to get that right on the table right now.
Frank's got his own New Haven Pizza School dough recipe that I've been using for years.
Yeah. All inspired by, the immigrants coming to Connecticut, New Haven. So
now I've lived in Connecticut for 12 years or 13 years now. So I'm from the Boston area originally. I know you are as well, and it's being
can't
here.
tell Kevin, he doesn't have an accent.
Right? Yeah, I got rid of it with the radio. But yeah, just being here for those 13 years, just in that short span of time. Now, Frank, obviously you've been here much longer than I have, so I know you grew up, being in this area as a kid.
Yeah, I grew up in West Haven, so obviously. We were from humble beginnings, so we really didn't get out of West Haven too much, but we were mostly Mike's and Zupardi's. And then when I got into college and I discovered Worcester Street for the first time, it was like, whoa. And I just fell in love. And so, theoretically, I've never left.
And Chris, you've been here for 17 years, you were saying earlier?
Yes.
So what have you noticed over those 17 years? Has there been a change in the popularity? I say we feel like in the past, handful of years, New Haven pizza culture and the Worcester Street and all of it has become bigger than it has ever been. But I always get confused. Is it just because we're doing the podcast and we're connected to it? Have you seen that over that span of 17 years?
I've definitely seen an uptick of popularity.
Yeah.
But we've had lines for years.
Yeah.
So I just think it's more of a notoriety that Pepe's is on the map. But I think the actual people that were here and came to us all the time and I mean they're here. They've been here.
Right.
We used to be busy in every single location. I think we're just maximizing everything that we can do right now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm sure there's still customers locally in New Haven who have been coming for decades, probably throughout their whole family, generations of people.
It's amazing that you have people that have gotten engaged here. They
Yeah.
have stories of their grandfather or their father taking them here. It's just, you know, a lot of people, they grow up on our pizza, and the grandparents pass it down to the parents and the grandkids.
Yeah.
And, you know, we keep reeling them in. You got to get them when they're young.
Right.
I think that's the best part of being at Pepe's, is seeing somebody that is, you know, just peeking over the counter, you know, somebody so small, and then you see them, you know, maybe 15 years later, and now they have kids that are peeking over the counter and, you know, creating that next kind of generation of you know, pizza.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me that, you know, you guys have been doing this so long and you're here all the time, but you constantly have people who are coming for the very first time. So that doesn't happen that often with many restaurants or many places, but you know, from all over the world, people are visiting. That must be a crazy feeling, knowing that someone's walking in that door who has never been here before.
It really is. Behind the scenes, I've nicknamed us like the Disney World of
Yeah,
pizza.
that's-
Like, people wait,
Yep.
and they're coming, and they're going to experience it. So we have to be spot on. Like,
Yeah.
if you're going to come from miles away and you've heard our accolades and stuff like that, we want to make sure that we deliver you an experience. You know, this is more than just the pizza. It's coming into this building that's 100 years old, learning about what got us to this point, and that's like, we gotta deliver on it.
Yeah. Now, for people who don't know, there's the location right up on the street, and then there's the spot we are now, the spot, which is the original. You know, how do these work hand in hand? So can people eat in this area right here, too?
Yes, this is open 7 days a week all summer long.
Wow.
In the winter, it would just be the main building, and this one's open on weekends. We also have private parties in this building.
Nice.
So we have 3 ovens on site, so we can produce some serious pizzas. And the summer season is our busiest season,
Oh,
and,
sure.
and we maximize with all 3 ovens going and all 3 buildings going.
Yeah. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, so
Hey.
I mean, it's kind of a controlled chaos. You know, to be able to, we kind of have one line. You know, you line up the main building, and then they filter in. You know, if we have room over here, you know, they'll put you over here. And it's funny to see some people are like, no, I want the main building, and I want the real experience. And we're like, that's the like, this building is the real experience.
Right.
I mean, this is 100 years. I mean, this oven is over 100 years old. You know, it's pre-1900. I mean, you're really getting the true experience if you're here.
If anything, I think I'd want to come to this spot.
Yeah.
And one of my fondest memories, and this was 10 years ago when Gary was still around, God bless him. I remember him. My family, we were sitting, waiting in line, and it was a long line. And Gary comes in and says, "Hey, just to let everyone know, we got our spots open at the spot. It's the original place." And he could have been Santa Claus bringing free gifts down. People would not get out of that line to come over here because
Gary
they just
was
don't
one
know.
of a kind.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I got into the game, more serious game a little bit later, so I never met him. But, I mean, I actually did a pizza class at one of his best friends in Wallingford. And the whole time I was there, the love that people had for that guy was just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
They still have it to this day.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
still get people every day coming in and saying, I knew Gary, and telling us stories, or, I went to Goody's Hardware the other day, and, they saw my shirt and they're like, "Oh, Gary," and telling you stories, and his tradition still lives on. I mean,
yeah.
we get it every day. So
I want to talk a little bit about the family aspect of it, because before we started recording, we were talking about how many family members are still involved in the business. So can you go over that a little bit? How important the family's been over this 100 years and up until
And
now.
I want to add on to Kevin's question too, because I think it's really important. A lot of people think that you guys have franchised, which I know is 100% incorrect. So speak to that as well. You know, this is truly, like I tell people all the time after I explain to them the whole story, I'm like, if I could create a business that my kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids could thrive in and survive, that's like, as an entrepreneur, which I am, is the ultimate thing. And I think your story speaks to that as well. So just for people's, for argument's sake, just explain to people exactly, as much as you want, how it really works. Because it's not franchised.
Well, Frank had 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Serafina, and they both got married, so they changed their names. And they had 7 grandchildren originally. Obviously, we know we lost Gary. So there's the Bamontes and the Rosellis. And there's 6 Italian grandchildren, and they have taken the oath to continue this legacy in its current form. But like most Italian families, they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Right.
And they saw a need 20 plus years ago to expand the business, to bring what we have on Worcester Street into other neighborhoods. You know, be the employer of choice, serve the best pizza there can, build that great culture. So they still are very much part of it. Chris here works with Francis Roselli on creating different pizzas and working on quality all the time. You could speak to your relationship with Gary over the years.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say the family for us are the gatekeepers. I mean, they're the ones that are really ensuring that we're staying true to what they were taught. And, you know, my relationship with the family is amazing. I mean, they really make sure that everything is perfect. I mean, we don't do anything to just change it. We change it for the better. And not only with pizza toppings and you know, everything of pizza, it's also employees. I mean, their biggest, I think, thing of Pepe's that people don't realize is the culture that we have in this place and what we've brought to every other location. So when we open up a place in Florida, you know, we have family members coming in and, you know, talking about, you know, their grandfather and their, you know, siblings and their mother and creating that from the day one, you know, kind of a who we are, who you work for, where we're coming from. And it's not just a, you know, work at a pizzeria.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the Mecca. Like, this is what, you know, you want to be at, you know, and coming from 17 years ago to now, you know, that's why I'm here today, is just because of that family culture. And just, you know, it's not just, oh, we work for this company. It's, we know who we work for.
That's really interesting because I think a lot of people don't realize that. How many locations now do you have?
17.
17 locations. Wow. And, you know, to put in that effort to really, because has it been challenging to find staff to work at these different locations who really understand and get the culture? I mean, if you're doing all this and, you know, setting them up that way, I think that you get people who have buy-in. But do you find that as a challenge, especially somewhere like Florida?
It's a very, very big challenge.
Yeah.
People is, you know, pizza's made by passionate people.
Right.
And the further we get out from New Haven, establishing that core base of employees is a challenge. But we go to relentless lengths to do that.
Yeah, put in the work.
Chris has gone on the road for 3 months at a time, training. When we opened in Florida, we flew pizza makers up here. We went down there and put up hiring ads and found people and then booked them to New Haven and had them spend 10 weeks in New Haven training and learning our culture.
Yeah.
But like I say, we're only as good as our last pizza, and we have to find the right people and teach them the passion and the legacy and the buy-in.
Yeah, because that's, you know, especially with pizza, we talk about it all the time. That's where it comes from, having that passion for it, especially people who are making the pizzas. That seems like a huge part of opening a new location. Yeah.
I say all the time, there's pizza for profit and pizza for passion, and they taste very different. You heard that first here, baby.
Right.
One thing, we were talking about the lines earlier. Is that something that has become like a whole new? You almost need someone to just manage the crowd, especially on the weekends. Like, how does that? Do you have security, bouncer? Like, how does that? It almost,
He looks like a bouncer.
I was just going to say. Now, during the week, I don't know if you still have the lines during the week. I'm sure you have somewhat of a line on weekdays. But, you know, is there a whole different side of the business that has become like almost crowd control?
We've changed the systems as far as crowd control, and you know, we use walkie-talkies, and
Nice.
we run one line in the front of the building, and then we split the line between the spot and the main building. And people say, "Oh, I don't want to go down there," and we always say it's the same pizza, just more history.
Right.
But that is a challenge. but we move it very quickly,
Yeah.
and we just keep producing pizzas. But there are no bounces. But we got to keep our people in check so everybody's happy
Yeah.
and they come in the right order that they came in.
Well, it sounds like you have it down to a science now. It's like you mentioned Disney earlier. Like they always just, they have it so dialed in that I feel like that's what you guys have going on here too.
I think more people actually tend to meet each other in the lines and have
good
the
point.
stories of, new people. And I remember going into, when I used to bus and going to the line and calling people out and saying, hey, any big parties? Because we have a couple. And a couple people would be like, oh, why are we being skipped? And we're like, well, we only have a couple big tables. And they're like, you know what? We're a party of three. You're a party of three. We're a party of three. And they all made one big table. And then
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's what it's all about.
It's amazing. So it's. I think people come in here. Some of them a little hangry, but they come in here and we satisfy that need. But most of them are excited to really be in that line, and they just talk to each other and share stories and get where you're from. Everybody's kind of from a different place. So
Well, I always say I've had friends in town before who want to do the New Haven Pizza Tour. How do we do it? Where do we go? And I always tell them, like, waiting in the line is part of the experience. If you just walked right in, that wouldn't be part of it. Like you said, you meet people in line. You're kind of anticipating going in and getting that. It's part of the whole allure to it. The whole experience involves the line. That's,
It's electric out there.
Yeah.
You come out there Friday night at 7 o'clock. It's
Right.
electric. You got people from every different state. You have locals.
Yep.
One time we were doing a little video shoot, and we went over to the line to see was there. There was a kid getting dropped off at college for the first time. There was a couple on their first date. There was somebody from like Philadelphia that drove up to try our pizza.
I mean, the stories.
amazing.
Yeah, the stories must be endless. The amount of people that you meet, even that you guys meet just working here. Meeting them in line and everything like that.
everybody wants to tell their stories.
Right.
We get them all, which is amazing because we have so many different cultural places that we've seen. Everybody wants us for years. We've heard, come to this place. When are you going to Texas? When are you going? So everybody's like, which is great. We're wanted, and we're going to be strategic on where we go. But we want you guys to just come here and try it at New Haven, all of our other locations, and create this kind of culture where you wait in line and you kind of everywhere. If you can do that in West Hartford and Florida and go outside.
Yeah, exactly.
So that segues into my next question, and I have a lot of questions. Tell us as much as you can future plans. I mean, clearly anyone that's followed you guys knows that right now you've got a pretty good East Coast, I'll call it, footprint. But can you give us a little bit of maybe...
We took this year off of expansion because it's our 100th year.
Okay.
And we're very focused on that. We have a few side projects going on, like we're putting a second oven in our West Hartford location because the demand is there for takeout, as well as a little party room kind of where you could book. So we're doing certain things like that. Sometimes it's a good opportunity to take a step back and do maintenance and training and make sure everything's humming on the right cylinders.
Sure.
But our plan would be to start resuming expansion next year. But we feel like one location per year is about the pace. We've done faster paces, but it just puts a lot of strain on things. So we feel that one location strategically to our clientele. And we're also looking for like A-level locations, like something that really fits our nucleus and what we're part of, because it's got to be done right or you lose it. The first challenge of expansion is everyone's going to say, is it like New Haven?
Yeah,
Right.
I wanted to ask that question.
I was just gonna say,
but
yeah.
I didn't want to.
That's going to be the hardest thing to live up to. Does it taste like the original location? That's going to be such a challenge, but it seems like you guys are doing it. So, and what goes into training the people who are making the pizzas?
It's a lot of training. It's a lot of training. Number one, like we talked about earlier, is finding the right people.
Right.
But it's extensive training. We don't just throw you in for a couple weeks. It's a 10-week kind of process of really making sure that these pizza people are ready and they're knowing everything about. And then we have a whole staff that goes for the first couple weeks, really just be that support, just to make sure that it's still being done correctly.
Yeah.
So 3-4 weeks, depending on, the way it goes. They're there. We have probably 10 staff members that are traveling for those days. And it takes a lot. It really does to open up a restaurant.
But I would think with the popularity, especially in recent years, that if in the future you open another place, you're hiring people, they might be familiar or maybe have even been here to the original in New Haven, and kind of that's why they want to work there. I feel like that's almost the goal. That would be the dream, is that someone knows the whole thing and wants to be part of it.
Yeah. Stanford was an easier one for us to open.
Yeah.
That was our last one that we just opened, and previous to that was Florida, and Stanford was a lot easier. You had that hometown kind of, everybody knows who you are, and they want to work for you, and it's great. We actually transferred a couple people from our Fairfield location over, so we had some vets that really just created that culture from day one.
Nice.
But Florida and further away, it's really hard to get those people that really are ingrained into it, and once you have people that are ingrained into it, or, we have so many people in our company that are 10, 15, 20-year, vets that, they just eat, sleep, breathe Pepe's. I mean,
right.
It's, they wake up, they start, decorating a pizza, and they go to sleep, and, it's crazy to see people grow that far. To just kind of do it in their sleep, but you just every day just grow 1% better.
And you talked about earlier about having meetings to come up with new menu ideas. How often are you doing that? And is that kind of a challenge too? Because you're everyone's coming for the original, whether it be the white clam or just the regular mozzarella. Do you come up with new pizza ideas?
We do. We
put them on the menu.
So we have a special every 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
So we call it a seasonal special. Every year we have the summer special that comes out, our fresh tomato pizza.
Fresh tomato, yeah.
So that's one that's a season where we stay off of it. But 3 months out of the year, we're always testing a pizza and seeing, hey, listen, for 3 months, does it work? Does it not work? And then we can take it off the menu, or we can make it better, or but we have Francis and a lot of other great people that they're very true to New Haven and the Italian kind of is it Italian, and that's where we kind of have those lines where it's very hard to create a new pizza because you have so many rules, and you don't want to replicate things, you want to innovate things, but you have these tight kind of quarters of this is what we do and this is who we are. And I mean, in another 25 years, I don't know if we'll be able to make another pizza because we have so many rules, but we try.
But that's part of the charm, I feel like. If you just started cranking out any sort of toppings, it kind of takes away from the history and the whole story behind the place.
We're old school traditional.
Yeah.
Pizza. We're never going to get foofy on that.
Right.
But we are always looking for that next hit.
Yeah.
I mean, you're never going to have wings?
No wings.
But it does it is a testament to wanting to always stay always be innovating, even though you have this long history, just always saying what's the next thing, can we improve it, can we make a new pizza that's different.
The reason why we run the seasonals is we are looking for the next hit. You have the clam pie that really put us on the map. That was Frank Pepe himself in the 60s. And then in the early 2000s, we came up with the fresh tomato pie, which we all know is about to launch right before 4th of July weekend.
It's a great one.
The end of June, we launched that one. So those would be our two big hits over the years. Mm-hmm. Chris was part of a meatball ricotta that is now on the menu.
That's one of my favorites.
So if something sells at a very high level in a seasonal slot, it'll make its way to the main menu.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, but then again, I just named 3 pizzas in 100 years that made it to the main menu.
Right.
So,
yeah, exactly.
and it's nice to offer the guests, something something different or something to look forward to, we tease different things.
Yeah.
We just had a pizza with some pesto on it.
Ooh.
It was a roasted tomato with a pesto sauce on it. And that was taking us a little bit out of our norm.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot of pull behind the scenes about, Grandpa didn't do that. But it was a very successful pizza, and our guests really enjoyed it.
Nice.
So I want to get back to what we were talking about before. Usually I have a lot to say, but I've letting you guys talk. So I want to be very clear to the people that are watching this, and you guys know this. Finding the right people to make pizza is really difficult because a lot of people don't realize this. And I tell people in my class, this is not a Betty Crocker recipe, okay? You have to become an artist. You have to love it. You have to be passionate about it. And it's hard to train. It's hard to find people like that. So my hat's off to you guys because that's, from my perspective, probably the hardest thing to grow is to find those people because you've got to find a pizza artist. And the other thing that a lot of people don't talk about, well, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people do talk about coal oven. Baking in a coal oven is an art that takes years. I will not speak too much about this, but one of my passions, like Gary, is I'm a big car guy. So one of the things that I, over the last 10 years, kind of got pretty good at is metal shaping. So taking a piece of flat metal and bending it and twisting it and making it look like something that you could put on a car. Well, I'm at 10 years, and I probably need another 30 years to get really good. And the point being is, baking in a coal oven or even a wood-fired oven, it doesn't have a temperature control. And there's hot and cold spots all over the place. And just so you've got the dough, the pizza assembly, and then the baking, which probably, if they're all very important, but the baking probably is where you could probably make the most mistakes. And to find someone and to train someone is years. That's all I'm going to say.
It's not a Pepe's Pizza without a good charred bottom. Okay,
Yep.
so you could be looking at the most beautiful pizza you ever seen. I always say flip that slice. I want to see that undercarriage. Make sure it was cooked crisp.
Yeah. And on a busy weekend, like a busy Saturday, so you open at 11?
Correct.
So you must have to start firing up those ovens and prepping. Like the prep process must take hours before that, right? So just setting up for like a busy Saturday?
Yeah, we're open. We come in at 7:00 every day.
Wow.
So 7 days a week. We're here at 7. We're rolling dough, scaling dough, prepping, getting the fires ready. So it takes a good 3-4 hours to really get all the fires kind of going and to the right temperature. And to your point before of pizza people, not everybody just does pizza. This is the one thing that we do, and the only thing that we do, really, besides, we have a couple salads and stuff like that and desserts, but
Which are really good.
yeah, they are. But
And I'm not a big salad guy, but I like salad here.
yeah, and you get a pizzeria person from somewhere else, and they're doing pasta and this and pizza, and when you have somebody and you go, you're standing here for 10-12 hours a day, and all you're doing is making pizza. They look at you and they're like, whoa, like they come in with this confidence, and they leave the first day and their back's hurting, and because they don't realize standing in one spot, doing this thing it's hard work.
It's a good point though, because if you're just focused on that it plays into the quality of the pizza, because you're not worried about getting the pasta over here and this over here and doing a million different things. They're just focused on that pizza.
Just take care of the pizza.
Right.
You hear it all day long.
Yeah.
Just take care of the pizza. Whatever role you have, whether you're banging out the pie, topping the
Right.
pie, cooking the pie, or getting things ready in the back.
Yeah. And I always like to know, so like ballpark, how many pizzas do you crank out on your busiest day?
This building can do over 1,300 in one day.
1,300.
Yeah, this building on a peak, if we open it at 11, we're closed at 11 on Friday and Saturdays during the summer.
Unbelievable.
That's 3 ovens going.
Yep.
Yeah, this one can do it. One standard 14 by 14 Frank Pepe oven that you see in most all our expansion locations
Yep.
can crank out between 600 and 700 pizzas a day.
That's unbelievable.
The pie guys could actually do more than that,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't get the baking. Okay, you'd be serving undercooked pizzas.
Right.
So we do max out somewhere between 6 and 7, and we do slow it down if we see the bottoms aren't getting cooked properly.
Yeah.
Like we will slow down. So if this building had lines and everything's going, we would turn off the online ordering and
okay.
give that a break. Maybe for 1 hour we would give that a break.
To
So if you
focus
get
on-
on and the online's not on, it's because the oven needs to recover.
It's a busy day on Worcester Street.
know?
The way I explain what you just said, because some people get it and some people don't, but if you took a glass of water and you had a straw in it, and every time you took a sip of water, the water goes down, and in an oven, the heat goes down. Every time you put a pizza in the oven, the heat gets sucked up from the hearth, and goes into the pizza, and you need time to recharge. And a lot of people think that, like, these ovens, they just, they're always at the same temperature all the
Right.
time, and it's so much an art. So much an art.
Well, I first took Frank's class, a one-on-one class, like 3 years ago, and that's when I first started making pizzas in my uni, like in the backyard. And I made one pizza, and I was like, I don't know how any pizzeria does it. It was unbelievable. So, I mean, ever since then, I've been so impressed by places that crank out that many pizzas. And obviously, you guys have been doing it for a long time. But anyone who's ever tried to make a pizza at home, you can appreciate, making a quality pizza all day long and cranking out that many.
We just keep doing it over and over again, like repeat.
Right.
We vacuum out the ovens with our steel vacuums. The farina is what is the air pocket between the pizza and the brick,
Yeah.
so it doesn't get too dark. But we throw in a round, vacuum that lane, give that lane a little recovery time, throw in another. It's just a constant repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
The one thing I also want to say is people have to give you guys a little bit of slack because, and I know every pizza you want out of the oven is perfect. But the reality is, more than likely, it's not going to be perfect. And so anyone that's ever done anything in volume, like you guys do hundreds and thousands of pizzas, they got to give you a little bit of leeway because, the cheese is not going to be perfectly symmetrical around the whole pizza. It might be a little odd shape, which people don't realize that a lot of traditional New Haven pizza is not round. It's oval shaped, egg shaped, football shaped. And so that's part of the allure. I think every pizza is like a painting from a painter. It's not going to be perfectly exact just the way it was, but that's part of the taste, so to speak, is how I describe it.
Yeah, it's a homemade product.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like you said about the ovalness, and that's really a New Haven thing because we have such hydration of our dough.
Yeah.
So the less hydration you have, the easier it is to make a circle, right? The more the rubber bands are kind of keeping it a circle. When you have such a hydration, like we do, we have a high hydration dough. It's easy to stretch a dough because there's no elasticity to it. So when you bite it, there's not as much of a chew. So
Right.
the less chew that you have, the more it's easy to stretch a pizza and make it a little oval, and that's where people don't really get. A lot of people do get it because we get a lot of people in some of our newer locations, and they're like, "This pizza's too round," and we're like, "Yeah, they're really doing a good job today," and we're like, they're like, it tastes great. But it doesn't have that like ovalness
Yeah.
and that, and we just laugh. We're like, guys, keep making circles,
And there's the cut of it too, because Frank had a video that went viral with his pizza school, the New Haven cut. And talk a little bit about that. So, they're not always just the triangle slices.
I got called every name in the book. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. Bah, 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 bah. I tell people all the time, there's no taste in shape.
Yep. We say that all the time. We're like, as long as it tastes good,
yeah.
no matter if you cut it in squares, if you cut it in circles, it doesn't matter what you do. Triangles, it is what it is. It's going to taste as good as it is.
So when you're training people, do you tell them a certain way, or do you just let them?
Yeah, we I mean, that's part of our, like, when we open up new locations, I mean, people are spending days just learning how to cut a pizza because you should see somebody with a cutter on their first day. They're ginger and you're like, let's cut.
Put a little mustard on it,
we tell them to think of somebody that they don't really like and put it into it. But so
Put a little rear end into it.
but like you said, to the craziness of cutting, I mean, there is a little bit of a science to it of where they came from. It's like the family cut, where you got the little pieces for the kids, you got the bigger pieces for the adults. Sometimes you get to that last piece and you're like, I don't really want a big piece, but there's that little one.
And you have
you get that little extra, and you're like, this is awesome, So we get people that send in pictures and they circle the pizza on whatever they're doing. They're putting out and they're like, what idiot cut this pizza?
Oh, yeah.
And we're like, it's, that's the way, that's the charm of it,
Right,
And,
yeah.
and that's who we are.
We have fights at our table when we get pizza from here. Like, as soon as it hits the table, I got that one, I got this one, I got that one. The way I explain it in my class, because I show the New Haven cut, is I take a little piece and I say, this is the Weight Watchers piece, and this is the Gavone piece, the big piece. And so the best part about it is that there's a piece for everyone.
Yeah, it plays into that whole family, aspect of it. People sharing with people or sharing with friends or even strangers, like you said earlier. People just sitting there having fun, people they met in line, and slices for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how I cut my pizza at home now. When I make pizza, I do that cut for the kids and everything.
Well, in our smalls, we cut a normal kind of triangle,
Yeah.
even our mediums. But the larges is where we kind of cut
Yeah.
it a little crazy, because that's the one that you're sharing. Like you said,
Right.
maybe a small you're eating yourself. Medium, maybe it's 2 people. But the largest is what feeds a family. So you kind of have those little differences of slices.
What are the most popular pizzas that go out? The top 3.
I'd say cheese, roni. Here's probably like clam pizza.
Clam pizza. Yep. That's what I figured the top was.
And the largest here, I mean, they're literally coming off the trays. That's the best part about it. Like, there's a lot of value in what you get. And the whole pricing thing is a whole nother thing, which we won't talk about, but that gets talked a lot about online. But people have no idea the overhead that it takes to run a pizzeria.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep. Just the ingredients. Like we're very prideful on all the ingredients that we bring in. We don't spare a dime for anything. I mean, we're trying to get the best of the best when it comes to mozzarella, when it comes to tomatoes, we have like a committee on just the tomatoes. I mean, we get a crop of tomatoes from Italy. We get all different dates and we do all of it. And we have Francis and, Gary when he was around and all of us, we get together and we're trying every crop of tomatoes to make sure that they're perfect every year, get the right ones that fit our profile. And, there's a lot of stuff that goes into it that, people are like, well, Domino's or this person or this, and they're like,
Junk.
It's different, right? It's different.
It's like regular restaurants, fine dining, and you go in to get fast food. It's a totally different, ball game when you're going, and you're paying for quality, you're paying for the experience. I say this all the time with whatever I'm doing. If I'm having a great experience and I'm, coming here to Worcester Street and having the whole thing, like I'll pay whatever. If you're having that awesome experience, that's what it's all about, and the quality too.
And this is the thing that really gets my is like, you guys publish your menus, and the prices, I think the last time I looked, are on your menus, right?
Yes.
So you would think if you're going to come to a place like this and you were maybe even say budget conscious, that you might check the price. So that's on them. If the price doesn't work for them, go somewhere else.
I'm sure you
Because
guys.
there's someone going to be in that line that's going to be happy
I'm
that
sure
you're
you guys
not there.
know more than anybody. There's always going to be someone that has something to say online or in the comments or whatever. But yeah, because you must get blowback from people all the time. But it's like just like anything. If you have a restaurant, podcast, everyone's always going to be having some sort of backlash.
It's still a value when our large pizza is 18 inches.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still a value because it feeds so many people.
Yeah,
now,
the
if you
family
start
style,
getting
yeah.
into the gourmets, you want to eat clams and shrimp and extra toppings. Now you're buying the Cadillac instead
getting
of the
fancy.
base model.
Right.
But it's still a value when you think that 18-inch pizza can feed a decent family, or maybe just me and Frank, right?
Hey, easy now. I'm on a diet this week. But Kevin, to your point, a lot of people don't calculate this in their equation. There's not a time that we've ever been here that we didn't go home with extras.
Right.
So now you got breakfast or lunch or dinner the next day. So really you got 2 meals. One here and one at home. That's value.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the way I
Everybody
think.
loves their pizza Like, you got to be leaving with some leftovers.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
Before we wrap up, so if someone's coming here to Worcester Street for the very first time, so maybe they've seen this on YouTube, they saw our conversation, what would you tell them, as far as advice, what day to come, what to order, what to get in line, is there any advice you tell them coming here for the first time?
I would come middle of the week versus the weekends, and I would sit here and eat in the building to have your first
The original.
Frank Pepe pizza.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be the spot necessarily, but definitely
yeah.
dine in.
Right.
And don't put that pizza in a box for the first experience.
Elizabeth.
That's a great point. The difference is huge when you eat it right out of the oven in the restaurant.
When you burn your mouth, the roof
Yeah.
of your mouth, and you eat it that hot, it's a completely different experience.
It really is.
And then the one thing that I would say is keep it simple. Like, don't go crazy onto 15 ingredients and just, get a cheese, a roni. Try it at its, peak of balanced flavor. And there's a reason why we sell the most pepperonis and cheeses. And, it's great the way it is. If you wanted the second time, or with another pizza, put another one out and put a couple different toppings on it, great. But keep it to 1 or 2 toppings.
Yeah.
Once you have, we call them garbage pies. Once you have 6 or 7 toppings onto a pizza,
No good.
yeah, and then they say, look, it's flops. It does it. Well, I mean, you put so many. It didn't cook well. It's like, yeah, just keep it to 1 or 2 toppings and you're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And a little secret, or not a secret, but maybe a tip is if you don't eat it here, and I think you guys do this, get it uncut. Go home, put it in your oven, heat it up, and it's basically going to be similar to getting a hot pizza out of here.
Good advice.
But the trick is get it uncut so it's easy to put in and out of your oven at home.
Just put it on the rack in the oven, and you can
Yeah.
you can bring it back to life in less than 5 minutes at
Boom.
400 degrees.
It's great.
We put it on our box.
Right.
Yeah, we got it baking instructions just when you got it.
It's awesome. Well, 100 years. Congratulations, by the way. Just an unbelievable business, an unbelievable history, an unbelievable pizza. It's just incredible. So thank you guys so much for being part of our podcast. That we finally made it here. We said since day one that we started this podcast, we got to get to Pepe's.
I've been here a bunch of times. I've never been in the back.
Right? Yeah.
Now I
me
feel
either.
like I've arrived.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, everybody. And you can subscribe on YouTube, anywhere where you get your podcasts. Follow us on social at Charred New Haven. Happy 100th to Frank Pepe's Pizzeria. And remember, it's not burnt.
It's charred, baby.
New Haven style pizza. Come and take a seat. A beats, it's time to eat.